Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, good midnight. For all of everyone joining us around the world, we're so delighted to have you with us for this special Kadena Eco Strategic Advisor Announcement / AMA. My name is Tyler Benster. I'm the tech adoption lead here with Kadena Eco. And Kadena Eco, if you have been sleeping under a rock, is running the ecosystem arm for catalyzing growth with builders, working closely with different projects, building on Kadena, the best layer one blockchain out there. And we're committed to proof of work, baby. So post-merge, stick around. We're welcoming all folks from Ethereum that are still proof of work maxis that want to be here. We're very excited to be administering our $100 million grants program, which is targeting builders and community members that are building projects, whether it's writing a bunch of pack code, working on documentation, or anything in between and beyond. We are here for you. We'd love to get in touch. Love talking technology, love talking strategy, and more. Kadena Eco is embellishing and building out our strategic advisory board, where we're onboarding experienced technology leaders and bringing a diverse operational excellence, strategic ability, and experience building for mass adoption to support Kadena Eco's rapid growth plans. So really stoked to have a crowd favorite back with us on stage today. Of course, I'm talking about my friend and colleague, Joel Woodman. So Joel, welcome back to YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You're tri-casting right now. And Joel is, of course, a key and integral member of Kadena Eco and drives a ton of the biz dev for us. Joel, great to have you back. And would you mind just giving yourself a quick introduction and helping us get our guest of honor on the stage as well?
Thank you, Tyler. My name is Joel Woodman. I'm a business development manager at Kadena and Kadena Eco. I'm stoked to be here today. I know you guys don't see my face too much because I'm under the hood grinding away, but this is a big one. I'm excited for today. I'm excited to announce, which we announced last week, was my friend and mentor, huge mentor to me in my career, Scott Barker from GTM Fund. He's a legend in SaaS sales and go-to-market leader. I'm excited to bring him to the table. So let's get him in here. What's up, Scott?
What's going on, everyone? Happy to be here.
Great to have you, man. I know we've had some excitement from community already, so I just want to sort of acknowledge some various shout outs and hellos that we're seeing rolling in from folks that are from watching all over. So we're really excited to have you with us here, Scott. And I think what's special about one of these events is not only is it a chance for us to get to know you a little bit better, and community to get to know you a little bit better. It's an opportunity for you to get to know the community a little bit more, and vice versa. So we're going to try and make this as interactive as possible. So for those that are out there on YouTube, on Twitter, and LinkedIn, we're monitoring all of these, and please feel free to chime in on the conversation, and we'll try and get your comments up here or get those shout outs made. But Scott, I'm just so excited for this conversation. I've been hearing about your name for a little time now. I remember I was talking with Joel, and he's like, I think we're going to get Scott. And then it finally happened. And so it's taken us a moment to get this public celebration in order, but really excited to have you here. And we're going to try and have a fun conversation.
Oh, yeah. Super excited. And to everyone in the Kadena ecosystem, what is up? Please, send in your questions. We want to make this as interactive as possible. We're doing this for the community. So let's get those questions running, and excited to tell you a little bit about, my backstory and my excitement for joining Kadena Eco.
Perfect. Well, perhaps to start, it's always fun to hear a little bit about background and story of how you came to be with us here today. So, Scott, I'd love to just hear a little bit about some of your professional career, and then moving into how you find yourself on a YouTube stream with all of us today.
For sure. So my name is Scott Barker. I'm currently the co-founder and partner at GTM Fund. So we're an early stage venture capital fund. We're unique in the fact that we're actually made up of 250 C-suite and VP level go-to-market executives from some of the fastest growing tech companies on the planet. Companies like Salesforce, Okta, Procore, Segment, Snowflake. and many others. Our main focus is on B2B SaaS. We do call ourselves technology agnostic. So I'm personally very bullish on Web3, hence why I joined Kadena. But we're typically coming in at kind of seed or Series A fundraise stage. And when we do invest, we're not just investing capital. So we like to call ourselves, capital plus investors. And what that means is we really focus on, we want to be the most strategic money that you take. And we're going to be helping you with everything on the business side of the house, right? So you can think sales, you can think marketing, you can think customer success, partnerships, operations, and that can be anything from forming your initial go-to-market strategy, maybe building a community, standing up an outbound program to create opportunities, creating comp plans for your team, optimizing for product-led growth. That's a big thing right now, or even helping you hire, your first couple executives. And yeah, I guess I'm a VC now, which is kind of weird to say. I'll always consider myself an operator. I am an operator first. So I grew my career in B2B SaaS, so software as a service, with a specialty in building out business development teams, before jumping over to run revenue at a media company. Actually, it was a company called Sales Hacker. It was really well known in the Valley, and that community we grew to 170,000 revenue professionals. And the whole ethos was teaching startups what the fastest growing companies in the Valley were doing and how to kind of mirror those best practices. And then, yeah, we had a hell of a run there. Got to do big conferences in San Francisco, London, New York, before getting acquired by a unicorn company out of Seattle called Outreach.io. I would go check them out. And I spent 4 years there. Eventually became the youngest director at the company. And I led strategic engagement. So that was basically, I was tasked with building and unlocking our network to drive net new pipeline and increase deal velocity at really our largest accounts. So that's a bit about my story. And I guess my focus at Kadena right now is taking a lot of those learnings and applying it to Kadena Eco. So I think there's like 7 main areas that are going to initially be focused on. One is, of course, assist in designing the go-to-market strategy for both the business and the marketing team. Lots of talent acquisition inbound, so trying to get incredible folks on board for both Kadena and the ecosystem. Network introductions from the Web2 space. I have a lot of software connections, and I think a lot of people are sort of bridging that gap and getting more interested in Web3. Obviously, some fundraising help for Kadena Eco from larger institutions, introducing builders and entrepreneurs to Kadena, mentoring key team members, and then helping to build and promote Kadena's brand, which you guys have already done such an incredible job at, and let's take it to the next level.
Awesome. Scott, one of the things I wanted to highlight, which has already helped us in a big way and helped me, is obviously your network. And I know you guys have that Slack network, and you can help out with hiring and sales and marketing. I know you're a humble guy and you don't like to talk too much and name drop, but I was wondering if you might be willing to let the listeners know a little bit of who may be in that network.
Yeah, don't want to just sit here and name drop, but we're super lucky. So we've got a Slack channel with our 250 operators, people like the ex-CRO of Square, ex-CMO of Tableau, head of revenue at Shopify, CRO of Procore, truly people who have seen zero to IPO, sometimes many times over. And I think the power of that network is pretty amazing. A founder will come to me and be like, hey, we need an onboarding plan for our new, BDR team, for example. And I can ask this incredible network, and within 10 minutes, we have templates from some of the fastest growing companies, at least in software, and we need to tweak them for Web3 because it is a different ecosystem, and we acknowledge that. But there is tried and true playbooks that we can certainly borrow from.
So one connection I wanted to make, and I'm curious if this resonates, is how software as a service, of course, has been a key thread in some of your professional career experience and with GTM Fund, and how in some ways blockchain really is, if you were to group it as a Web 2 technology, you might call it a SaaS. You sort of have these API calls that you can do, which is interacting with the network, and you pay gas fees in order to do it. You pay for that service. And then, of course, it's a platform technology that is actually providing this distributed ledger that allows you to write to it. So in some sense, the BDB process might be a little bit different. There's a striking similarity, I think, in some of that heritage and where we find ourselves today in Web3.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And then that's part of the excitement for joining is bringing some of those playbooks that have worked and just, making minor tweaks. I think the focus has always been on SaaS companies look at kind of their go-to-market playbook to drive customers. And I think the evolution of that into Web3 is the customers are actually oftentimes builders. So you can still create, a go-to-market funnel, but instead of, the end goal being customers, the end goal is builders, which is pretty exciting.
So we got a cheeky question from KDA for Life. I'll take Kadena's Nick Bitcoin for 500, please. I'm going to interpret that in context of our conversation today as saying, Scott, how did you get introduced to the Kadena team? How did you find yourself in this conversation here?
Yeah, so I guess it would start on a bus ride up to Kamloops many years ago. I met this man named Joel Woodman. So we both grew up in Vancouver. So I'm a Canadian. And Joel and I happened to play in the BC Summer Games for rugby, believe it or not. We were definitely the smallest guys usually on the field, but that's where it all started. I met Joel, and then of course we had our own career paths. But I started hearing about Kadena a few years ago as part of a group chat of people who were just super plugged into kind of Web3 and pretty far down the rabbit hole. And I used that group chat to keep a pulse on what was going on and projects that I needed to know about. And then, through that, started looking more into it. And then, seeing Joel's enthusiasm and excitement, he kind of truly dropped everything, quit his role and jumped all in on Kadena. So I think that piqued my interest even further. I was like, all right, well, I know Joel's a smart guy. Let's go see what this is all about. And I think Kadena was one of those projects that, and this isn't always common in Web3. Like we talked to a lot of Web3 founders at GTM Fund and a lot of people building in this space. And sometimes the more layers you peel back, it gets a little murky. And Kadena was just the opposite of that. Every layer that I peeled off got me more excited. That led to a conversation with Francesco, who's obviously brilliant. And, each and every member of the team that I met with were just so incredibly switched on. And, I've seen from being part of building many companies in the past that it's all about the people. And, businesses are just a collection of people working to solve the same problem. And, when you have the right people working on a problem, then, the possibilities are really infinite. And so, when I was asked to join as an advisor, I think it was just, it was really a no-brainer for me.
That's amazing. Yeah, well, we're so happy to have you and looking forward to leveraging some of your wisdom, your go-to-market experience, and some of your networking connections. Maybe we've been 20 chains in production now. Now we got our 21st chain, which is Scott Barker, and we're going to kind of weave it into the rest of Chain Web here. So that's really fantastic. I would love to, Joel mentioned some of that humility, and I'm going to try and pry away that for a moment, if you allow it. I would love to hear just a couple of your sort of achievements and accomplishments that you think perhaps are most related to kind of Web3 and crypto in terms of, understanding some of these connections of go to market and sort of how to have a playbook that sort of helps projects and companies launch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll highlight a few stories, but before we get there, maybe I'll just take a step back and just give an oversimplified kind of go-to-market strategy. And I think this has been the SaaS playbook for a long time, and there is so many parallels which we can kind of talk through. But a go-to-market strategy is just that. It's a step-by-step guide on how you take a product or a service to market. So, marketing is a piece of that strategy, but it encompasses a lot more than that. And, you build a go-to-market strategy when you're launching a new product into an existing market, you're launching an existing product into a new market, or you're testing a new product's potential for growth. So that's when you're going to create these. And it's actually a really great blog post on this that our friends at Cognism did that breaks it all down. But right now in tech, at least in kind of my world, there's two common go-to-market strategies. There's the product-led growth motion, and then there's a sales-led growth motion. And you can think of product-led growth, or PLG, as basically a fancy way of saying freemium. It's been around for a while, but there's just a new renewed focus on it. So that'll be, you'll have a product like, let's say, DocuSign, for example, where you can actually sign up. Oftentimes it's free, or there's a very nominal cost, and swipe a credit card. And then when you have to unlock more features, or you want to onboard your whole team, that's when you'll go talk to a sales rep, and they're going to try and upsell you on, a larger plan. And then there's the sales-led, and that's really what software companies have been doing for the last decade. There was a book called Predictable Revenue. It was by Aaron Ross, and that sort of became the Bible for a lot of these SaaS companies and how they would grow so rapidly. And that's where you have marketing try to create demand, whether that's through ads, through content, and they're going to drive demo signups, and salespeople are going to reach out. They're going to convert them into customers. And then oftentimes you'll have like an outbound business development team that's kind of the bridge between marketing and sales, and they're creating opportunities. And then you're going to layer on, a customer success team to ensure that your customers are happy and growing, and operations to make ongoing tweaks to all those systems and processes, because it's not a one and done exercise. Your go-to-market promotion is going to constantly evolve, iterate, and change. But all of that is about something very simple. It's just about creating an incredible customer experience. That's what it is. And you can take that same playbook, and in Kadena's case, and a lot of times in Web3, it's about creating an entire builder's journey that is amazing, from the first time they hear about Kadena to getting into the community, to fast forward a few years and they have a wildly successful business and project that, is known around the world. So, and it can be as simple as like 6 steps, and this will be oversimplified. So if there's, CROs on the call, we can go deeper on it, but it's defining your ICP, defining your ideal customer profile. In Kadena's case, it's defining the ideal builder profile. Who is the right builder for Kadena? It's researching your competitive landscape. It's developing your messaging. It's setting clear KPIs and targets for your sales, marketing, customer success teams. It's choosing which tactics you want to invest in first, because you can't do them all. You're going to invest in brand, you're going to invest in community, in outbound partnerships, content, and then you need a feedback loop. And this is basically how it's done. And that's oversimplified, but that feedback loop then allows you to make changes accordingly and adjust to what the market needs. So that's the quick, go-to-market playbook, if you will, that I'll hopefully be bringing. And, from a personal standpoint, I've done this before. I was lucky to build out a BD team from scratch here in Vancouver, a company called Media Valet in the digital asset management space. That was the first time I was able to build my own process from scratch, bring in my own technology, hire all my own people. And we really started crushing it. And, a lot of the systems we put in place years ago are still helping them scale today, which is cool. Obviously, joining the Sales Hacker team was definitely a huge catalyst for my career. I actually beat out 400 people to land that role. It was a pretty coveted role at the time. And I mentioned we grew that community to 170,000, but it was a small team. So I was doing everything from finding new partners to work with, closing business, hosting podcasts, webinars, planning events. We were building that plane as it was flying, for sure. But we got to work with, household names like Adobe, Salesforce, DocuSign, Outreach, Gong, HubSpot. And yeah, got to throw huge conferences. We had some of the best leaders in the world speak at those conferences, and a super rewarding part. And then, of course, the 4-year run at Outreach was kind of those once in a career opportunities where we were just scaling so insanely fast. And I joined around 200 people. And when we left, there was, close to 2,000, around 1,700. We 10x'd ARR at that point. And it was a rocket ship. And that forces you to really grow, both personally and professionally. And, I thank Outreach for having so much faith in me to, go out there in the broader tech ecosystem and build partnerships and connectivity. So I was flying all over the world, speaking on their behalf and hosting big events and dinners with our clients. And a funny story, 2 years in a row, I got on an actual tour bus, which was Collective Soul's old tour bus. And we went to 8 cities and we just talked to startups about the future of sales and marketing. So, yeah. And then I could keep it going, but for the sake of timing, I'll end there.
Scott, what are some of the things in Web 2 SaaS companies, some of your portcos that you're looking at? What are some of the innovations you see in Web 3 that can bridge that Web 2 world to Web 3? And, do you have any thoughts on when that adoption curve will, start to see an exponential upshift?
Yeah, well, it's super interesting just to see the accelerated interest, even from, very seasoned leaders that maybe have had a 20-year career in SaaS, and they're like, I don't want to get left behind. And these folks are really interested in blockchain and underlying technology. And, we see it all the time in our Slack channel of, people posting things about, Web3 and their involvement. I think one of the biggest challenges, and I guess differences, and something that is going to have to be adapted to this new world. And it's not the sexiest answer, but it's just communication channels. It's actually shocking how reliant Web 2 and software companies are on email as the main communication channel. Like almost everything, right, in their CRM powers all of their marketing campaigns, their business development campaigns, like all the customer relations, and that's all usually tied to an email. And something interesting in Web 3 is that's definitely not the case. A lot of people choose to remain anonymous, or they have like a pseudonym name, and they can still be incredible builders. And they're living on Twitter. Like that's why we're having this conversation on Twitter, or they're living in Discord or Telegram. And that poses some really unique and interesting challenges for growth. It's not uncommon in the Web 2 world where you could have a conversation with someone 2 years ago, and then you end up doing business with them 2 years later. They become a great customer, a great case study for you, but no one can remember 2 years ago the exact conversations and the problems that you were solving for them. So you have to go, and all of that information is tied to email. So anyway, I don't know if that answered your question, but just an interesting thing that I've been spending a lot of time, and Joel, when we've been working together, thinking through what that looks like in a new world. And for me, I think it really forces brands in Web3 to have a renewed focus on community. You need to draw people to you, because it's much harder to, I guess, go outbound, which a lot of software companies have done in the past.
Yeah, no, I think one of the biggest jumps for me actually getting into crypto in a career sense, coming from a traditional sales and business background, has been the scattered Telegram world. And so that's something that we're working on quite closely and sorting through, optimizing, workflows so we can have the most efficient experience for our builders and our community.
Mm-hmm. Want to make sure we take a couple questions here from community. So SXS 303 has been very patient. How to mass adopt a cryptocurrency in Scott's view? What are the most important factors?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for the question. So mass adoption is also one of the reasons Kadena is so attractive to me, because that is their focus. They're focused on actual scalability. There is a quote that I love. Let me see if I can remember it. Play long-term games with long-term people. All returns in life, whether in wealth, relationships, business, or knowledge, come from compound interest. So I think, mass adoption is going to be a long-term game. And I think as humans, we always want those quick wins, and we want it to happen overnight. But it's going to be a long road ahead, and it's going to take a big focus on brand. It's going to take a big focus, again, on community. There's going to be a huge focus around education. And then, the fourth thing, which I'm excited to play a part in, is we need to do a really good job at getting enterprise adoption. So large companies that already have the distribution channels, like one of the hardest things about building a company isn't necessarily finding a problem to solve, but it's actually distribution. The whole build it and they will come is just not true. You need to find those distribution channels. So, helping enterprise companies that we all know, they all have brands, understand the power of blockchain and the different use cases that are going to help them meet their customers. I think if we can, on a B2B side, get these enterprises to start adopting it, that will trickle down to the consumer, and we can leverage their brand to beat the drum of mass adoption.
Fantastic.
Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I always like to acknowledge sort of a random aside. Paul, thanks for the idea. I'd love to see the icon too. We've got our best people working on it. Hey, Jeff. No. Anyway, besides that, I think there's this really interesting thread in terms of thinking about projects having these sort of dual mandates. We talked about this a little bit last time with Brooke, where unlike in Web 2, where your traditional startup, maybe is radio silent for the first 24, 48 months of development. In crypto, there's often this very community first perspective, or people build the community, they build out in the open, And while there may be some anonymity sometimes in community managers or members themselves that are early adopters of the project, there's increasingly a trend for founders to be doxxed, or to at least have some folks on the team that are doxxed. And curiously, there's this element of tell the world what you're building and make sure that people understand it's important. Make sure that you have those first customers ready to go when those smart contracts actually hit the blockchain. It's kind of interesting, right? Because in Web 2, you think about people building the website first, and then the website's built, and then you're like, let's get eyeballs on here. And now it's like, how can I get people in my Discord? How can I, get people evangelizing on Twitter? How can I kind of get this word out? And so I think it's kind of interesting that in some ways, when we think about those growth engines that you talked about earlier, and some of those different go-to-market strategies, that those are almost being incorporated in projects from the very beginning. And those engines of growth are in some cases being baked into a protocol itself. And so I just wanted to highlight that as sort of this really interesting development that I see, where this rate of growth and this rate of how fast some projects grow in crypto is quite phenomenal. And I think perhaps comes down to the incorporation of some of these strategies that you've mentioned from the very onset.
Yeah, I think it's a great point to hammer home. And I think that's one thing Web 2 actually learned from Web 3. And, when I go back to the example of outreach acquiring SalesHacker was a distribution arm, was a media company or a community, and they saw the power of that and acquired that. It was almost the opposite way. But I'm seeing the same trend. We've seen it in B2C for a long time, where these influencers on Instagram will let's say build a fitness audience, and then listen to that audience, and then build a fitness product, and then they have built-in distribution. You can have a huge company overnight. And I think that trend is going to continue. It's like maybe the simplest way to build a business ever, and maybe the only time that we can, because we are such an interconnected world now, where you can build the community, just listen to that community, show up, provide value, find some problems that community are having, and then start building solutions to solve those problems. It's pretty exciting time to be a builder, that's for sure.
Got another community question here from Luke Kreisman. What is your primary goal as a Kadena Eco advisor?
Primary goal is help with mass adoption, help with hypergrowth plans. I'm working closely with Joel to help him, build out his team and the playbook for growth. And I've hammered this home a few times, but certainly going to try and borrow some of the playbooks that I've seen work at multi-billion-dollar software companies, and try and rework them for not only just Kadena Eco as an ecosystem, but also as new builders come on board. Like, I'm at your disposal. I want to help your project grow. I'm here to help with playbooks, with hiring, with strategy. There's going to be so many incredibly innovative companies that are built on top of Kadena Eco, and I hope to support as many as I can. And I truly mean that. Go connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Twitter. You have questions, you have ideas, you have thoughts. I can be a sounding board for how you take that project to market, because you do need to get revenue in the door at one point to continue to innovate, and I think that's where my skill set lies.
Awesome. I have another great question from SXS303. Doesn't the shift of the old world to virtualization compare to the Web3 evolution? In the old days, everyone was concerned that their data was stored somewhere in the cloud. Now everyone uses AWS.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm not sure if it's a question or just a really smart comment, but absolutely. I was part of, one of the first company or second company I joined in tech was a digital asset management company, and we were fighting against on-premise servers. Everyone wanted to keep their digital assets, in-house on literal servers, and we had to fight against this old world thinking of what is this cloud? Like, where is this cloud? Like, is it secure? Is it scalable? And that was, I think that's a great comparison to another shift that companies are having to make. And I'll tell you, that felt like swimming upstream for a long time, but there was just a moment that everything shifted. And now everyone's in the cloud. That's just like a given. So I think that's a great comparison and parallel to another big shift that's happening. And again, like it was a huge focus on education. And so out there, building white papers, getting case studies, and that's a smart comment for sure.
I have a question a little bit more specific to GTM Fund, but also I think can be taken in a broader fashion. How is the current market adjusting how GTM Fund looks at investments and deploys capital? And then, feel free to, tailor it as you wish to be more broader or specific to GTM Fund.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Thanks for the question, Justin. We are either heading into a recession or we're currently in a recession. And valuations have dropped dramatically. And I think what we've done and just did is we're actually going earlier stage. So we're doing more seed and even pre-seed deals, because those companies usually take 6 to 8 years to build. We're confident that what goes down goes up, what goes up comes down. We're just in the middle of a kind of a down cycle right now. If I were to guess, it'll probably be the next close to 2 years or so. But this is a really good time to build. You look at some of the biggest venture capital firms and the biggest companies, and they're actually built during or right after the dot-com crash and some of these down cycles. So it is a good time to be an investor. Valuations are lower, and it's a good time to be a builder and emerge on the other side of this downturn as a large company. So that's my 2 cents on that one. Great question.
Thank you. Got a question. I think this is maybe more for the Kadena Eco folks, from Ramon Cruz. In the pipeline of Kadena, will there be any update of VC partners? So a few topics here. So first of all, we're bringing in key talent as advisors, people like Scott, of course. We have a number of VCs kind of that interact or are part of Kadena Eco in some capacity. I'm a venture capitalist as well. And we also have a few deals that just got inked where some VC investment checks have flowed into companies that are building on Kadena. These aren't publicly announced. It's the project's own prerogative as to when or how they announce, funding details. But I'll say that there's a lot of activity that's going on, both in terms of, getting more folks with venture background around the table now that there's this ecosystem that's growing so rapidly. But secondly, we've started to see over just the past couple of months, some of these first, traditional VC checks actually flowing into companies building on Kadena, which is super exciting. And for anyone that is a VC or investor out there, I'll just highlight that, in the grants program alone, we've gotten literally hundreds of applications. And so one can actually run a traditional VC pipeline now of companies building on Kadena and have, a 1 to 3% acceptance rate of, pitches to investment and still build out a portfolio. So that's actually pretty amazing and not something I could have said even 9 months ago. So yeah, a lot of progress on that front, and you'll hear more soon.
And happy to help there as well. You can, we take applications at GTM Fund as well. We do invest in Web3. So, jump on gtmfund.com and you can go on there, and you can also see, most of our deals that have done over the course of the last year and a half are with tier one VC partners like Andreessen's of the world, Bessemers of the world, Crafts of the world. These really incredible firms, and many of them are have huge arms for Web3 projects. So happy to make introductions to the broader Kadena ecosystem as well.
Awesome. Looks like the ideas are starting to come out and starting to flow. Shout out 85 as a small business owner, and with KDA having extremely low transaction fees, has thoughts of a point of sale system like Square been talked about in the community. I'd say, first of all, if anyone is working on this or wants to build something like this, please feel free to get in touch. Happy to discuss, happy to chat. Of course, our scalability for transaction fees is one of the big draws of Kadena. And then secondly, I'd say that I think it's fantastic to think about crypto in terms of its fundamental utility, which has largely been historically like the transfer of money in a fashion, regardless of borders, whether those or restraints, whether those be censorship or country borders, international legal regulatory frameworks, etc. So I think that that utility-minded mindset is what gets builders through the bear. That more and more we're looking at projects that are doing amazing utility, and so that's something that is a big focus for sure. Let's see here. One other quick question. Looking at the growth going on in Eco, I foresee having to spin up beyond 20 chains in the next 8 to 16 months. Thoughts? So even though we are very proud of the fact that we can increase the number of chains as needed and when we sort of want to, and literally be like an overnight type of transformation to switch from 20 to 50 chains, we also are reluctant to do so until the overhead justifies it. So there is cost associated with additional block production that's borne by folks that are actually running nodes or running miners, etc. And so we will scale as soon as there is a sufficient demand to justify the scaling. And so the good news is that if we do have a moment where the network becomes super congested for several days and it's very clear that we need more chains, we can do that overnight. But we're definitely going to be data driven here and not scale chains for political reasons. All right, I think we're coming up towards the end of our time here. But Joel, I'm curious if you have any other burning topics that we haven't hit on yet that we ought to get around to as we bring Scott on board here.
No, I don't think so. Just want to give a nudge and bump any builders out there. Hit our grant application. We've got hundreds in there. If you're waiting for a response, you will get one, and just keep them coming. Keep building.
Love it. I'll take a quick question from Paul DeJersey. In short, what separates Kadena from other layer ones? I have my version of this answer, but Scott, I'm curious, as you've come into the Kadena family, what is it about Kadena that's gotten you excited about being on board?
I would say, to keep it short, in the since we have about 2 minutes left, I think it's the focus on scalability and actual enterprise grade infrastructure is what. By far that would be my answer in the quickest version possible.
Awesome. Yeah. So just to give some technical coloration to that same answer, chain web scalability with 20 chains running in production, having scaled from 10 to 20, the ability to scale from 20 to 50, as the previous comment alluded to. Pact, our smart contract programming language, which is enterprise ready, built from Will and Stewart's experience at JP Morgan, designed for folks that maybe are sales and trading or database background, but not like programmers at heart, to be able to pick up quickly. And I think we're in a great spot in terms of being able to enable projects that are focused on enterprise, being built by enterprise, or projects that need to be able to scale from alpha to production, massive users overnight. That's why we're bringing in people like Scott. So I think with that, we're going to wrap up. We have some love from community here. Scott, it seems like you got the job, so congrats on that, man. Thanks, Sonnet, for the kind words. And yeah, lots of engagement. So everyone in the community that tuned in, we have such appreciation for you. The Kadena Army is what makes us great and keeps us inspired. We get excited by all the engagement and questions, and that's what makes our job so fun every day. I think someone asked a question earlier about let's see if I can find it, about what does Kadena Eco do? Can you guys document more of what we do? And I'll just say that every once in a while we get these moments to highlight on YouTube some of these accomplishments and some of these key personnel that get brought in. And Scott being brought in is like a key weapon in the arsenal. And behind the scenes every day, Joel is freaking hustling and cranking. And so you might see me on YouTube, and if you don't see Joel on YouTube that day, it's probably because he's taking some key biz dev meetings or working with a project or getting stuff down the pipeline. And so I would just highlight that, this is the beginning, just the beginning. We have so much more great content coming up. These YouTube project spotlights are oftentimes these types of events that highlight work that's happened in the past 6 months, rather than being forward-looking. Bringing someone like Scott is definitely forward-looking, because we have enough projects now and enough opportunities that are going on where we need people that have this kind of go-to-market experience, as we have the number of projects building on Kadena scaling up. And so figuring out this playbook and helping accelerate adoption is absolutely key. And Indeed Potato, a team being formed. We're looking forward to be able to help everyone build. And I'll end with the words of DCF: the future is bright. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks everyone. Yeah.